Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck design video. Today I am going to be re-recording my Jeska Warrior Adept deck. Jeska here is one of my absolute favorite decks. The very first deck I've ever made in EDH was Mono Red with Jeska. It wasn't quite what this deck is, but she was still my first general. The reason I'm re-recording this is the previous video, if you saw it, I was tinkering with some more higher mana costing permanents and spells. My normal method for playing Voltron was not actually intact, but I rebuilt it to go back to how I normally play it. My normal Voltron formula for EDH is a 4 or less mana costing general that has a haste or an evasive body, and essentially just a good thing to throw swords on. The idea is to have 20 creatures total and 20 equipments and about 6 to 9 accelerants so I can get the general out on turn 2 or 3. What I had done previously, I was just tinkering with heavier stuff, so that deck wasn't quite on theme. If you saw my Olivia deck I had put together for a little party, that's the same kind of setup that this is. So if you've seen that, you might not need to see this video, but I'm going to go ahead and record it anyways. Jeska here, she's just one of my favorite cards. Also one of my favorite characters. She is the sister of Kamal, and she's also very similar to what Kamal does. She is a 4 mana costing 2 red 3/1 first strike haste that can tap to burn someone for 1 or a creature for 1. The tap effect is cute. I've seen a lot of people waste time trying to capitalize on that. Past putting maybe 2 equipment in there to take advantage of it is not really that good. I mean, you can get rid of some utility creatures and whatnot. But, for example, late game, if I give her Death Touch, she can become removal while a bigger creature gets through. But this deck's actually designed around her and getting general damage off. So this is a very quick and aggressive deck. We'll go ahead and through it real quick. But Jeska's the general. Again, if you've seen my other video, this specific playmat, the Braum artwork here, I love Braum's artwork. This is the Jeska playmat. I only play with this playmat when this deck's involved. So it doesn't get a lot of action anymore. I don't like seeing this deck lose, and some of my play groups are getting very competitive, so I usually try to use this for just 1v1. Being that I'm restricting myself to Mono Red, 1v1 and Voltron is not the best. If you like this style, the way I've designed this deck, I would suggest actually Miri the Cursed. I did her for a while as a Mono Black general with the exact same setup, just different creatures and different spells and lands, but same 20 equipment almost. And her flying evasive body that gets bigger makes this setup devastating in 1v1. Let's go ahead and through the rest of the deck. So there's 20 creatures and 20 equipment. Most of my creatures are designed to land early, to be bigger and equip up and be hard to deal with. Blood Knight is fantastic. He's pro white and first strike, so early game he's very good. It's kind of hard to swords or path him. Stigma Lasher is also very good. He's another kind of these are more or less hate bears in red, where he's got wither. So if he were to be given first strike, he takes less damage, but also if he connects, the opponent cannot gain life for the rest of the game. Now, granted, I am working on general damage, but that may be important sometimes. Another hate bear, kind of. Azilot is another haste first strike. She tends to bolt people if they cast something from the graveyard, though. Doesn't happen too often, but it's still a good body. There are 20 equipments in this deck, and there's a nice stack of artifacts. I think there's at least 15 other artifacts, so he will almost always be pro everything. Pilgrim's Eye, while a lot of people don't really like it, it's really good in Voltron because it replaces itself with a land for your land drops, but also it's a flying body, so swords on it is really good. Mind Sparker is something I'm playing with new. I like the first strike on a 3-power body, but also the chance to just burn people is actually pretty good as well. Incremental damage, again, not quite doing general damage, but it's another good body. The Flame Speaker is really, really powerful. This is probably, if this guy were legendary, he would be the general, or a general of one of my decks. The trample on him makes the difference with the swords. Putting Feast and Famine on this guy is ridiculous, but most of just about any equipment on him, he has to be dealt with. This is a card that usually has to be dealt with immediately. I love Double Strike, so Markov Blade Master tends to get bigger. The hard thing is getting her initial trigger on. Once she usually gets to about a 3/3, the opponents usually have a hard time dealing with her. While not very offensive, Magus of the Moon is fantastic for just nerfing over the opponents. Being mono red, we don't have lots of ways of interacting with a lot of things, so just nerfing over their land is usually a good start. Solemn is actually kind of slow for this deck. He may make it out for another mana dork or something, or a more aggressive earlier creature. Don't really need the ramp after around 5 lands total. I think there's maybe 2 spells in the deck that cost more than 5. Well, there's not a lot, so he may be taken out for something. This is a little out of order. Vishino Heretic here is again for early disruption, destroying their artifact ramp or whatever I can. Another double striker. This guy's got Undying. You kill him, he'll come back a little bit bigger. And the Firebombers is again another way of just kind of settling down the opponent's side. This deck can run off of maybe 1 or 2 artifact accelerants and 3 lands easily. So knocking everyone else's lands down, especially in 1v1, this usually just wrecks them. Tarnagar, I cannot pronounce this guy's name. He again is something, he should be a general of his own deck. Essentially he's got Vigilance and a tap to fight effect. Giving him a Sword of Protection of something is really good because he can become really good removal. Here are my 2 favorite dragons, Storm Breath and Thundermaw. Both of them cost 5 and have haste, and they tend to just do really well when you add equipment onto the package too. Wormcoil's there just for good value. I guess there are there's a few spells in here that cost 6. So there's Wormcoil, Duplicant for our other removal. Horde Smelter is more artifact removal. And Godo's there just to get me the equipment it's going to take to kill you with. I usually like to get the exact sword it takes, but sometimes it's necessary to get something like a Death Touch equipment to put on Jeska. But either way, he's just an all-around good card. A lot of people, when they think Mono Red Voltron, they think of Godo. He is very good, and the double combat trigger off of himself is very powerful, but the fact that he costs 6, I don't think that's very aggressive. Well, I mean, you can make it aggressive with all the artifact ramp you want, but I would much rather have a 4 mana costing haste general than a 6 mana costing general that can't attack for a turn. The Tutor to Play effect is really good. Now there's a few combos with him where you can keep casting and sacking him and making copies of him, get all your equipment to play, but I just like Jeska better. Let's go on to the equipment next. With my method of 20 equipment, I consider an equipment converted mana cost the actual payment and the equip cost. This one is a bad example. This is a new equipment that just came out in the new precons. This is essentially the 6th sword of something or other. I'll usually hold on to this till I have a sword of protection or a sword of drawing something. But for example, Naginata, it costs 1 to cast and 2 to equip. I consider this 3 converted mana cost. So I can cast my general on 3rd turn, then I definitely have enough mana to cast and equip this. Naginata is a great one for Jeska because it gives her trample and +3 power. I can't put it on a lot of my creatures, but it's just here for her. Same thing, Basilisk Collar gives Jeska Death Touch and Lifelink. So again, converted mana cost 3, I can cast and equip it after she's out. But that means she is tapped to destroy a creature that I can target. Gorgon's Flail is another Death Touch. It gives a small boost as well. We're up to a converted mana cost of 4 now. I'm still in range of her. Same thing with Tenza. This one, I've actually been thinking about taking out. +3/+3 in Trample is a good effect, but I'm looking at Naginata there, and I see the converted mana cost 1 or 3 if I have to drop it from hand. The +3 boost is good on other creatures, I suppose, but it only works on legendaries. So this one may be coming out shortly. Champion's Helm is fantastic. I like keeping her safe. Hexproof is really good. Again, we're on converted mana cost 4 total. And now we're moving up to converted mana cost 5. 3 to cast, 2 to equip. So that means I have to have a land drop after I swing with Jeska once. But giving her Double Strike, giving anything in my deck Double Strike is really a very powerful thing. Still converted mana cost 5, 2, and 3. But giving her Hexproof, giving her safe. Giving her Indestructible is one thing. This is another card I've been thinking about replacing. When better equipment comes out, this may be one of the first to go. This is an aggressive deck. A defensive strategy like Darksteel Plate sometimes doesn't fit. Inquisitor's Flail, although is one of my favorite cards to get. This is a little out of order. This one only costs 4 to cast and equip. She has First Strike. What this essentially does is double her damage. Since she has First Strike, that means she will double the damage dealt before she is dealt any damage, usually killing it. So putting this and any other kind of power boost on her is just a very good card. This, with usually any other sword, is usually just the game-ending equipment. Jite is a card I don't like sometimes because it makes very political situations in multiplayer. In 1v1, although, it's great because I can remove blockers before I'm actually getting another combat off. And as I said, there's a sword package. There's all 5 swords. My favorite one to get is Feast and Famine because it allows me to untap and do more. There are 5 swords, but I do classify the Masterwork of Ingenuity as the 6th sword because I will usually try to wait till I get something like Fire and Ice, so I can draw more cards. I'm in mono red, so Fire and Ice is one of the more important ones too, because it stops her from being bounced and her 1 toughness from being burnt, and it draws me cards. Sword of Vengeance is good because it gives her trample, or the trample and vigilance, so I can swing with a 5 body, then tap her after I declare for 6 damage. But the vigilance is really good on just about anything, really. Another trample and lifelink. We are now up to the converted mana cost of 6. There's only like 3 or 4 equipment to do this. Everything else, yeah, there is a total of 4. So there's 16 equipment here that I can cast and equip onto Jeska the turn after she comes out. The rest of these I have to have a little bit more. But Sword of Vengeance is worth it. Giving her lifelink and trample and +3 power is definitely worth it. Batterskull is really worth it because it gives her a massive boost in lifelink and vigilance. And it comes with a token itself, so I can equip up the token if I'm in a stretch. And the Argentum armor I've actually been thinking about taking out. If I don't have Godo to trick this thing straight into play, I'm usually very unhappy to see this in my opening hand. Because, I mean, my converted mana cost thing makes this 12 mana converted to cast and equip. But, I mean, the power boost is great. Destroying a permanent, although, is more important, because I can't deal with a lot of things like enchantments. Because I cannot deal with enchantments, that's probably going to keep this one in the deck for a little bit longer. But probably first signs of a more aggressive equipment, specifically for good red creatures, I will most likely be replacing this. Like I saw Godsend printed in Theros, and I was really excited, hoping they would make one for all colors, but of course they didn't. The rest of the artifacts here, there's not a lot, are essentially just mana assistance and ways of getting through more. This is here specifically to get my Valakut or Train Generator. I could get, there's a few other non-basics now too, but it's mostly for those 2. I have currently 7 1 to 2 mana costing artifacts. I had a Crypt in here earlier, but decided to take it out. So we have a Soul Ring, which allows for return to Jeska. A Mana Crypt also allows for return to Jeska. Then there's Wayfarer's Bauble. Mind Stone is great for replacing itself. Cold Steel Heart is a generic one, just gives us red mana. Same, just another generic 2 mana drop artifact. Same 2 drop mana artifact, and a 2 mana drop artifact. So I think that was like, what, 7 artifacts I can use to drop and get Jeska out on turn 2 or 3. That aggressive start is what I usually like running with in this deck. So swinging for 3 damage on turn 3 may not be that good, but the follow-up turn is usually the more important one, where I drop an equipment of some value and make the damage count. There's very few effects in here that work with Enter the Battlefield. We got Godo and Duplicant and Sad Robot and the Pilgrim's Eye, I guess. But really, that's more important to keep our artifacts safe. This does turn off a few things, but being that I don't tutor in this deck at all, like for any of those cards, it's more important to keep my things safe. So this is definitely worth running. And I only have these guys for draw. I took the Memory Jar out. This is my last 6 mana costing spell, I think. I got one more. But this one just a really good card draw to kind of help me actually dig for the lands. I only have 36 lands in the deck, and then they're staffing in just for, again, more card draw. Let's go to the last of the permanents before we go to spells. I think there's only like 3 enchantments total. Blood Moon is one of my favorite enchantments. It's like the Magus of the Moon. This gives me a chance to actually get a more aggressive start, because if I land this and the opponent can't deal, it's going to give me a few turns before they can stabilize. Price of Glory is also really good against a lot of decks. There's very few spells I want to do in this deck on the opponent's turn, so this shuts down a lot of counter tech, in a turn bounce tech, things like that. And this is technically my only damage doubler in the deck past the Inquisitor's Flail. Again, on a first strike creature, this is really devastating because this makes her essentially 6 power. I'm only running Koth and Sarkhan in the deck as walkers. I took my Karn out because I was trying to drop the curve a little bit more. Koth is great as a pseudo mana accelerant, although he's not as fast as I need to get Jeska out. And then Sharkin there is just an indestructible dragon to swing with. I will usually +1 him and put some equipment on him. I will try, I don't like the fact that he almost kills himself to do the burn, but usually the turn after Jeska, if I have no equipment, I'll drop Sharkin and remove a creature, and then I'll swing with Jeska, and then I'll just keep on swinging with Sharkin. The ultimate, I really do like Grafted Skullcap, but in this deck, if I have important things in my hand, I don't have any way of tricking my graveyard up. It may be more, it's a situational thing, really. Now, unlike my previous listing of this video, where I had all sorts of expensive spells and supporting artifacts, I'm running my actual normal spell suit in here. Well, kind of, I'm missing one of them. There are 3 spells that burn a creature or player for 3, and if it connects, the creature is exiled. My favorite one is Carbonized, because it has a cannot be regenerated clause. Yamabushi's Flame, and then there's the third one is called Annihilating Fire from Return to Ravnica. That one didn't make the cut because I was running out of room. Usually I run all 3, and maybe even a Magma Spray too. Into the Core is great for removing artifacts. Best thing, since I'm having an aggressive start, is maybe kick back your start by exiling your mana rocks. Grab the Reins is good at instant speed. The one thing that usually gets this deck is when the opponent puts up a creature I cannot get through. So an Act of Treason effect, even just to sacrifice it, is really good. This is instant, and I can entwine it, so I can take someone's creature and sacrifice it on their turn in response to combat, chump block, fling it at their face. There's a lot of things. This is a good card. It's expensive to entwine, but it's definitely worth it. Active Aggression is the cheap Act of Treason, where I can pay Phyrexian mana. It is instant speed, so again, mid-combat, someone else's turn, if they're attacking me with 2 things, take one of them and block the other. I can literally just take one of the creatures they're blocking me with, or about to block me with, and swing with it. And Savage Beating, again, if you haven't seen my plethora of mono red decks, or any deck with red, this is usually a game-ending card, especially if I have a sword of something or other on Jeska or one of my creatures where I can get double triggers. Because I get double strike, double combat, means 4 sword triggers. And the last spell in the deck is All of Dust. So throw all my creatures, all 20 of them. I think, like 15 had red in their mana cost, and there's like 3 enchantments and art. There's about 25 or so cards in my entire deck that this is going to hurt me with. More likely, this is going to completely board wipe an opponent and deal with enchantments I can't normally deal with. But yeah, that is all the permanents other than lands. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. Again, I'm running exactly 36 lands. With my normal setup, I will do the 7 to 9 mana rocks and about 36 lands, and I want my general to be less than 4 mana. So we have Terrain Generator and Valakut. These 2 are great together. This lets me ramp a little bit, although more likely I'm just using it to punch out extra lightning bolts. The tricky thing in this deck is Valakut may not be worth running, since honestly the deck can run on so few lands. I'm playing lots of equipment, and especially swords, so an evasive flyer that the opponent might have forgotten about is really good. This is another way of getting Jeska out on turn 2. And then the rest of these are these new mountains. I've been collecting these for a while, and I finally got the whole set full. I was stuck at like 12 for the longest time, and I put these in a casual deck. But there are these John Avon 7th edition mountains. They're all the same. I just really like the specific artwork. I was trying to bid on the original print on eBay, but it kind of got away from me. I wasn't willing to spend as much money. I really don't like spending money on Magic, but collecting is one thing, spending money is another. But that's a lot of basic mountains. I also really like it because they're very close to the border on Jeska. I was tempted to use the Odyssey, or start working and collecting the Odyssey mountains. But after actually seeing how they looked next to Jeska, they actually don't match the borders very well. But yeah, this is Jeska. She is my absolute favorite deck. I love Mono Red and EDH because it's a good challenge. It is severely underpowered for what card advantage and card disadvantage we are given. If you are interested in this style of deck, I would definitely suggest Mirror the Cursed. The Walking Grave guy, the blue or the black-green guy, is very powerful as well. There's lots of very quick and evasive generals. You can do this Geist to St. Traft. Doing Mono Red is thematic. This is a very flavorful deck because of her. And my passion for her is making me keep a weaker deck than it needs to be. If you want an example of what I'm trying to describe, go look at my Olivia deck. Same exact setup, just adding black makes an infinitely stronger deck. But Jeska was my first ever general in EDH. I've built her in a few different ways. I like this setup for her best. For a while I did a barbarian tribal, but she was kept in the 99 instead of as the general Barthol was just better. Yeah, if you have any ideas or input, if I've grossly missed some exceptional equipment, then definitely let me know. This recording is happening right after New Year's of 2015. I'll go ahead and just replace the previous video. The difference from the other video is essentially just like 10 cards that cost more than 6 mana. And I wanted to drop the curve down again. But any ideas or suggestions, definitely let me know.